Story 1. So, I am telling this story because the friend involved recently passed away after a short but valiant battle with cancer. She went from the doctor saying, "Well, we need to do a biopsy. It's probably nothing," to a call from her 5 weeks later saying she was going into hospice care, with just a few days to live. Saying goodbye brought up some tough memories and a funny one. 24 years later, I went to a meetup. It was a tiki-themed club that met weekly, not only at tiki bars but also at 1950s-style diners. This particular meetup took place at a local dessert spot with a 1950s diner flair that also served some pretty good coffee. I think this was my second or third meetup with them, and it was a good group. Several members rode motorcycles or even Vespa scooters, as I did. Mine was an old 1970s Honda CB 550 4-cylinder with 4 exhaust pipes. I sat down with my coffee and started chatting with one of the guys who had just bought a new Triumph Bonneville, when someone walked up to the table, sat down, and took a sip of my coffee. What in the world? I looked over, and to my utter astonishment, it was Wayward. Wayward, which was her nickname, was an old girlfriend. We had a short but enjoyable summer together after I graduated from high school. She was working before heading off to college. She went off to college, I went into the United States Navy, and we lost track of each other. This was back in the days before the internet. By this point in time, I had been married for 15 years and had a child. She was still single. It was a strange but entirely platonic friendship that grew around the meetup club. That dessert diner became a favorite, and every time I would get a coffee, she would steal it and drink from the other side. It became our thing. It was a great way to get out of the house. I worked from home, and that could be isolating, but the club gave me a social outlet. Still, it wasn't without its problems. One of the older women in the club was a real attention seeker and instigator. She really didn't like Wayward, who wasn't doing anything to provoke her. Wayward contributed a lot to the club, and that apparently showed up Miss Attention Seeker. My wife. She had no interest in the club and saw it as an opportunity to hang out with her friends down the street or have them over. She thought the whole coffee-stealing thing with Wayward was cute and charming. My wife has absolutely no jealousy in her nature and cannot stand people who thrive on drama. She used to laugh when I told her about the latest antics of Miss Attention Seeker. Oh, and she had the temper of a classic redhead. So, several years of friendship and club meetups went by, with various levels of harassment and whispered rumors courtesy of Miss Attention Seeker. Then came the annual club planning dinner. Miss Attention Seeker had indulged in more than her share of boxed wine. Wayward, who had gotten held up with a patient, arrived late. She walked in after the dinner had finished and gave me a friendly hug. That was all it took. Miss Attention Seeker leaned in with a loud, exaggerated whisper that was meant for everyone to hear. She said, "Gee, I wonder what Miss Raccoon would think of that. Maybe someone should tell her." I saw red. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and speed dialed my wife. "Oh, you have something you want to say to my wife, Miss Attention Seeker? Let me help you out here." I put the phone on speaker. "Hey honey, someone here has something they'd like to say to you about me and Wayward." "Oh," my wife replied. "Hand me over to her, dear." Miss Attention Seeker tried to speak, but my wife, Miss Raccoon, let her temper loose. She absolutely gave her a verbal dressing down. She called her out, mocked her behavior, and made it abundantly clear that sticking one's nose in other people's business was not just unnecessary, it was inappropriate. My wife would never actually hurt anyone, of course, but from the sound of her voice in that moment, you might have believed otherwise. The entire club heard it. The room fell completely silent. Miss Attention Seeker was frozen, mouth agape, looking like a fish out of water. Her face started turning pinker than the wine could explain, and all she could do was make soft, stammering, ah noises as she tried to recover. Then, my wife started laughing, and her laugh, it's one of those laughs that is incredibly contagious. One by one, people around the room started laughing too. Miss Attention Seeker turned even brighter pink, then abruptly stood up and ran out of the room. a 60-year-old woman crying like a toddler. After that incident, things in the club settled down quite a bit. Miss Attention Seeker showed up less and less, and when she did, she kept her comments to herself. No more whispered insinuations, no more theatrical drama, just silence, probably for the best. The rest of us carried on, and the club remained a fun, welcoming escape from the everyday grind. The friendship stayed strong, especially the one I had with Wayward. She continued being the same quirky, kind soul who drank half my coffee, teased me mercilessly about my old motorcycle, and somehow always brought a little spark of joy into every gathering. When she got sick, it hit hard. She hadn't told many people, and by the time she did, it was too late for much more than comfort. Her call came out of nowhere. One moment she was talking about club plans, and the next she was telling me she was going into hospice care. Just like that. 5 weeks from probably nothing to goodbye. Saying goodbye brought up a flood of memories. Some were tough, some were hilarious. That moment at the planning dinner, that one always comes to mind. It was ridiculous and a little over the top, but it also showed the strength of loyalty and friendship and my wife's no-nonsense way of handling things. Wayward was one of a kind. A brief chapter in my youth, an unexpected re-entry into my adult life, and a reminder that not all connections need to be romantic or long-term to leave a lasting impression. She was a little chaotic, a little rebellious, and incredibly genuine. So, in the spirit of the Tiki Club, here's to you, Wayward. Fair winds and following seas. Finishes the last of his Mai Tai. Story 2. So I'm a swimming teacher, and due to COVID, most of our school classes have been put on hold. When things were getting better, one of the schools which we used to teach told us they want to conduct their school swimming programs again throughout 4 days for 2 weeks. Only this time they will be holding it at a club, since they were the only place which allow them to book, as public pools still do not allow school program swimming. The pool is an 8-lane pool, and we book 4 lanes which we separated in the middle, so we can have 8 groups running at one time. Please note that each group consists of 1 swimming teacher and 4 students, and they are not allowed to intermingle as a safety measure. Yes, the students are side by side in the different lanes, but we try to work with what we have, and the school was the one who suggested it in order to have the swimming classes. There were members from the club who swam in the swimming pool, and after seeing us teach, complained to the club management that we were all too close together and there was no safe distance between groups. Cue malicious compliance. The club management talked to the school, telling us to either break the classes up to 20 minutes so that the groups will be smaller, or book the whole pool. So the teacher booked the whole pool. The next day when we came, we told the lifeguards to get the club members, who were the same one who complained that there was no safe distance between groups, out, as we had booked the whole pool. We then ensure that all our groups have at least 1 empty lane between each group, and we continue with our classes. Some of the members were unhappy and continued to swim in our lanes which we book, swimming over the lane ropes which we have set up in the middle, which split the pool in half. We got our lifeguard to get them out, since we booked the whole pool as per management's suggestion, and when the members still did not want to come out, called the club management to deal with them. Club management came down and had a chat with the members who were still in the pool and refused to get out, as they had paid good money to be in their club, and we have every right to use your facilities. How dare you allow them to book the whole pool? The management and the teachers replied in the tone of, "You were the one who complained that the students were not following any safe distance, so we booked the whole pool in order to ensure that our students are safe. Would you want us to continue to book the whole pool for the next few days?" The members gave up, and for the rest of the time we were there, we were back to our 4 lanes. Story 3. This story starts off with a slightly less humorous fact. A few days ago, I was on the unfortunate end of credit card fraud. The fraudsters decided to take my CC info and purchase $1,000 worth of car parts from Philly and have it sent across the border to the city I currently live in, Vancouver, Canada. Normally, this is where the story ends. Sometimes they get away with it, sometimes they don't. But either way, my card is replaced and I continue on living my life. This, however, is where the fun starts happening. I got a call this morning about a DHL shipment entering the country that required customs to be paid. Knowing I haven't shipped anything with DHL in forever, they are the worst, I quickly come to the realization that it must be the fraudsters shipping their goods here. It can't be, I thought. Who in their right mind would use a stolen credit card to order something to their own house in the city the owner of the card lives? After a brief chat with DHL about the customs fees I will not be paying, I managed to obtain the address the package was being sent to. I hummed and hawed about it, but eventually decided the best thing to do was call the local police department and let them know what was up. I told the officer all about the situation, that unfortunately I did not know what car the parts were for, and that I hope this info helps them somehow in the future. He tells me that the chances are slim, but he will swing by the house. It's literally 15 minutes from my own, just to see if anything weird is going on and follow up with me if he needs to. I thank him and go on with my workday. About an hour later, I got a call from the same officer, obviously excited. "Hi, it's Officer X. You will never guess what just happened." I was following up on the report and drove by the house. I decided to go knock on the door just to see if anyone was home and ask them a couple questions. A man opened the door, and as we were talking, DHL drove up to deliver the package. Yes, that's right, the exact package we had been discussing. The delivery driver walks up to the door and says, "Hi, is X, my name, there?" To which the man replies, "Oh yeah, he's just downstairs." You can imagine my surprise. That's pretty funny, because I just got off the phone with him, and I know for a fact he doesn't live here, I said. The guy, no joke, looks me dead in the face and goes, "Oh, whatever, the package is paid for." I chuckled and turned to the DHL driver to tell him I should leave because I need to make an arrest. "I'm calling you while I drive back to the precinct. I thought it might brighten your day." I still cannot believe that they caught the guy, but thought it was a story that was too good not to share. Story 4. This happened not long after I turned 15, and my mom had tried to send me to military school behind my father's back. We didn't know yet, but during this time my mother was having an affair with an old high school ex-boyfriend of hers that she'd somehow reconnected with. She'd claimed she was going out to drink with friends, but she really didn't have friends, save for a few coworkers she occasionally went out with. But they didn't really like her all that much. My dad and I figured maybe she'd finally made some real friends, because she actually got a bit nicer and was leaving me alone more. Whenever Mom went out drinking with coworkers, she always took a cab to head out and then came back in one later so she wouldn't drink and drive. The cab service even knew her by name since she called every week. None of her coworkers really tolerated her enough to be her designated driver, so no one really got suspicious when she was using this routine more frequently to go meet her lover. One night, however, my mom came home drunk and hobbled her way up to my room. I awoke to her pounding on my locked door at like 4 a.m. She was punching and kicking it from the way it sounded. I opened the door to see her standing there looking disheveled, swaying back and forth, and slurring her words. She called me a bad child for not doing as she says anymore, and that she wished she'd only had girls. I was understandably freaked out and told her to go away. It was about that time my dad showed up and this happened. The following is again paraphrased, as this happened a long time ago. Dad: "What is going on here in the middle of the night?" Mom: "I was telling this little brat exactly what I think of him for. Disrespecting me. He's totally out of control." "How much have you had to drink tonight?" "None of your business, you." Looks like she's thinking really hard for a second. "Piece of fermented waste. I should have married the other guy. He's so much better than you. He treats me like a real woman." "What other guy?" Mom just then looked like she was going to hurl and turned to go down the hall and headed towards the upstairs bathroom. But she only managed to hobble about halfway before projectiles spewing her guts out all over the upstairs hallway. Then she fell over face first onto her own vomit and passed out. Dad was visibly disgusted. then asked me to help him get her to the bathroom so he could clean her up. But as we went to lift her, we noticed a smell quickly forming around us. My mother had actually soiled herself while laying in her own vomit. The smell of alcoholic vomit and urine mixed together was horrendous, but we still had to carry her to the bathroom. My dad had me get a whole roll of paper towels and a garbage bag, then spent the next 45 minutes cleaning my mother up in the bathtub. He threw her clothes into the washing machine and then put my mom to bed. She woke up with a bad hangover the next morning, all the while not remembering anything she did or said, and was more embarrassed than I'd ever seen her when she found out. It wasn't me or my dad who told her. Nope, it was my sister. We were going to try and spare her the finer details on what happened, but my sister blabbed the whole thing in front of her while she was nursing a coffee at the kitchen table. My dad took some time off work to call in a carpet service that same day. He had the hallway carpet ripped up, then had the floor steam cleaned before new carpet was put down. My mother hid in her room the entire time because she didn't want to be seen, and she stayed clear of me for a while, but soon fell back into her usual habits. My dad got suspicious after my mom mentioned the other guy, and got the call logs from the phone company for both the house phone and mom's cell phone, and what he found was enough for him to call a private investigator. My mom was outed as a cheater soon after because she really didn't cover her tracks well, and that's when my dad finally said he wanted a divorce. I wasn't there to see the argument when he called her out, but I was told it was next level. She went crazy and threw stuff all over the kitchen. Broken dishes were everywhere. Yeah, guess who got to clean that up? Also, if anyone is wondering what happened to the guy my mom was having an affair with, my dad told me he actually applied for a transfer at his job and skipped town pretty fast. I have no idea where he went or where he is now, and from what I've heard, he didn't ever contact my mom again. So yeah, she threw away her marriage for a short affair that meant nothing. Not that I care. I'm one of the few people who are actually happy their parents divorced. Story 5. Hi, guys. I know it's been a while since I posted here, but unfortunately, Candy is back to her usual antics. I remember how much people enjoyed reading about her in the past, so I figured I'd make an update. This is the first big thing to happen with her since she moved to another state, and I really only see her on holidays and birthdays. I'm still mostly no contact with her and still have her blocked on everything. I'll add a refresher for everybody. I'm a 22-year-old woman, and my older half-sister, Candy, is a 28-year-old woman. I fostered her youngest son for over a year because she had a drug addiction that led to the custody of all 3 of her kids being taken. The older 2 still live with their father full-time, and Candy only gets them over the summer and every other holiday. She's currently engaged to a guy I'll call Cody, fake name, obviously, and I don't know his exact age, I just know he's nearly in his 30s. Together, they have my youngest nephew, who I'll refer to as Nugget. They've since gotten custody of my step-nephew. He has no involvement in this update, and have also had my youngest niece, who is almost 7 months old. We'll call her Peanut. Now, on to the update. On Thursday, the 20th of March, my mom's older brother had another massive heart attack. It was incredibly scary. He actually died and had to be given chest compressions and shocked once, which revived him. He was placed on a ventilator, and none of us knew if he'd live or die. My mom called me to inform me, and I drove with my friend and ex-boyfriend to where my uncle lives, around 2 hours away. I sat with him, my mom, her youngest brother, and my aunt for a while until after visiting hours were over. Then we drove to my aunt's house. She's my uncle's ex-wife, but they share custody of my cousins. It was there that I saw my sister. I was already extremely stressed out and on the verge of a breakdown, and seeing her instantly turned my mood sour. Well, guess what, guys? I should have seen this coming. I really should have known better, but yeah, she lied about having a hysterectomy. Not once, but 3 times. She's now claiming the doctors performing her C-section just decided not to do it against her wishes, which doesn't make sense. The first thing she said to me when I got there was, "So, guess what? I'm pregnant." That was the last thing I wanted to hear in that moment. I immediately turned to my friend and ex-boyfriend, we'll call him Jason, and told him to zip. I'm not raising another one of her kids. Well, as usual for Candy, she tried to make the entire family emergency about her. We were trying to have a very difficult conversation with my uncle's oldest 3 kids, a 22-year-old man, a 19-year-old woman, and a 12-year-old girl, about the possibility of him not waking up, and what we'd do if he didn't, or what we'd do if he did. To make matters worse, my oldest cousin, we'll call him Larry, is also expecting his first child with his girlfriend. We couldn't get through a single sentence without Candy blurting out, "Yeah, I'm pregnant. By the way, I'm pregnant. I don't need this stress while I'm pregnant." She wouldn't even let Larry talk about how he was becoming a father. She was also vaping despite knowing full well that she's pregnant. Oh, and my uncle also happened to have his heart attack on the 2nd-year anniversary of Candy's sobriety, and she couldn't stop talking about it. She kept making comments like, "Of course he had to pull this on my sobriety anniversary. Like, girl, our uncle might die. This is not the time or place." Jason was trying to keep me calm. I was trying to keep my mom and cousins calm. It was a total disaster. There are things my uncle did that contributed to the heart attack, but Candy was acting like it was a personal attack on her that had happened on that day. And honestly, I don't think it was even her actual 2-year sobriety anniversary, considering that at Christmas, one of my hydrocodone pills went missing. I know that because I count them every single time she's been in my house. Aside from this family emergency, she's been doing her usual boundary-pushing behavior. Sometimes she'll drop by when they're in our state to let us see the kids Nugget, Peanut, and my step-nephew, and she acts like she owns the place. The last time she was over, she told me she was going to grab one of my drinks from the fridge. I said they weren't in the big fridge, they were in the mini fridge in my bedroom, and I'd prefer if she didn't go in there. She flat out said, "I don't care, I'm going back and getting one." I clearly stated that my room was a huge mess, and I did not want her back there, and that she needed to respect my no. I had to tell her no over 10 times before she eventually got the hint and sat down, all annoyed about it. Then, when it was time for them to leave, she hugged me. She knows I hate it when she touches me. I'm neurodivergent, so I have a small group of people I'm okay with touching me, and she is not on that list. I didn't hug her back. I had my arms crossed. I flat out told her, "This hug is uncomfortably long. You need to let go," and she told me to be quiet and get over it, that she was going to hug her little sister. I told her she needed to respect my boundary, and she straight up told me that she wasn't going to do that. That hug lasted over a minute. One reason I hate her hugging me is partially because her personal hygiene is poor. She always reeks of body odor, she rarely showers, doesn't wear deodorant, and her hair is always greasy. It's just unpleasant. It's not even a mental health thing. She actively brags about how she just doesn't shower or wear deodorant. Anyway, back to the present-day mess. Candy kept trying to guilt-trip my cousins into visiting my uncle in the hospital. She was trying to get everyone to go at once, even though there were visitor restrictions and only 2 people could go in at a time. The nurses had already warned us they'd ask us to leave if we kept trying to sneak extra people in. Eventually, Candy got bored and started asking people for food. This led to her and my mom going on a fast food run. Jason and I stayed behind to keep my little cousin, the 12-year-old, company. When they got back, we tried to go out for a cigarette. Yes, I know it's a bad habit. As we walked out of the room, Candy was walking in, vaping. My mom told her, "You shouldn't be doing that when you're pregnant," and Candy snapped, "Well, you shouldn't be smoking at all, but here we are." She also kept trying to follow me and Jason everywhere, and it was driving us both up a wall. My aunt and cousins noticed and kept trying to give us a break from her, and we appreciated that. Eventually, my mom told me to go home, rest, and come back the next day. I said goodbye to my cousins and aunt and left with Jason. That night, my uncle's health started to improve. They took him off the ventilator, and he was able to talk a bit. So on Friday, we went back to see him. Jason and I waited with my cousin Larry in the waiting room, since it was my aunt and uncle's turn to go in and visit. While we were sitting there, Candy came in, looked at Jason, and said, "You're still here? Don't you have a life?" Jason, bless his soul, looked her dead in the eye and said, "Of course I'm here. I'm not going to leave her to deal with your selfishness alone." She glared at him and stormed off, and I could have kissed him right then and there. After my aunt and uncle finished their visit, Candy rushed in and hogged all the time with him. She wouldn't let anyone else go in, even though the kids hadn't seen their dad yet that day. She kept making everything about her, how stressed she was, how the baby was making her nauseous, how she hadn't eaten, and how she needed to lie down. Eventually, my mom told her to back off and let the kids in to see their dad. Afterward, when we were back at my aunt's house, Candy started complaining about how tired she was and how she didn't want to make the 2-hour drive back home. She tried to guilt-trip my mom into driving her and the kids back, but my mom refused because she was exhausted too. So, Candy called Cody, her fiancé, and told him to come pick them up. He was understandably annoyed, since he thought they were only going to be gone for a few hours, and now had to drive 4 hours round trip. Before she left, she tried to get Jason and me to take a group photo with her and the kids. I refused. Jason refused. My cousin Larry also refused. We weren't in the mood for a fake, happy family picture when our uncle was still in critical condition. She got mad and stormed off again. Once she was gone, the atmosphere actually improved. We could talk, be emotional, and support each other without her interrupting every 5 minutes to say, "Don't forget I'm pregnant." I've had it with her. This was supposed to be a serious moment for our family, and she treated it like her own personal drama show. I'm so glad she lives in another state now, and I only have to deal with her during rare visits. I love my niece and nephews, but I'm not going to raise another one of her kids. I've done my part. I'm done. Story 6. My husband and I have been apart as we're waiting for a visa. I met him back in February of 2022 when he was in the US on a student visa. It was instant love at first sight. I love him so very deeply, and I never loved anyone the way I love him. Sadly, due to him being on a student visa and it expiring, he had to go back to his home country. When he tried to renew his visa, he got denied. Then we met with an immigration lawyer, and he suggested we tried for a fiancé visa, and sadly that was denied too. So, we switched lawyers to one that specializes in marriage visas, so we applied through her for marriage visa, and we're going to see if that works. Sadly, if it doesn't, then I'm going to move from my home here in New York to South Korea. I visit South Korea quite often, and I'm going back there in 2 weeks. Then I'm going back in June, August, and December. I do love South Korea so much, and if it doesn't work out for us to get him back here, then I'm content of moving there. Of course, with all of this going on, my mom had made this all about her. I was in such a deep depression with all of this visa stuff, and I was in such a dark place. I couldn't rely on my mom's support. It took a while, but I pulled myself out of dark depression. I had so much help from my therapist and psychiatrist, but even to this day, and being apart from my husband, I'm still in pain. Before we applied for the marriage visa, I wanted to move to South Korea. My mom would cry and said such hurtful things to me. She managed to make this whole visa situation about her. I thought any parent would support their child if they wanted to move, but silly me for thinking that. But if this doesn't work with this visa, I need to be with my husband, and I'm moving there. I was watching TV downstairs in my living room, while my mom was outside talking on the phone to a friend. I overheard her say something about the visa situation and my husband's denial. I heard her and her friend suggest that my husband got denied due to a criminal record or someone in his family did. We got an FBI clearance and police report done on him, and nothing came back with concern, like all was normal. Even our new lawyer said there's a lot of problems with the fiancé visa compared to a marriage visa. Her friend asked what happens if I get pregnant, and my mom told her she prays every night that I don't get pregnant. I don't know why this is even a topic of their concern. I'm sorry, but if that does happen, I'm moving to where my husband is. I'm not going to be apart while I'm with our child. The other thing that hurt is that my mom told my friend that she gave my brother so much praise for being with a US citizen. She even said to her friend, When my son called me and told me that he's serious with his girlfriend, and I'll love her because she's a US citizen. That stung Suo deeply. It felt like both my mom and brother think poorly of my life. After hearing this call, I encountered my mom that I heard everything she said. She then blamed me for overhearing her call. I calmly told her that I only heard the call because I was watching TV. Our walls are very thin, so you can hear everyone and anything, and I heard her discuss me and my husband, so it does concern me. I told her I'm hurt that she told some random friend all of my business, and I mentioned the comments I heard. She then said that it's true, she feels so lucky and happy for my brother that he's with a US citizen. She even said that she's happy he doesn't need to go through the pain I'm in, and how relieved she is that she won't lose him to another country. In that moment, I started to cry from hearing her even acknowledge it. She then got upset at me for crying, and told me that I'm making a big deal for crying. I told her that I'm not, and everything she said hurt me so deeply. She then backtracked and said that I missed the part of her complimenting my husband for him having a brilliant mind, that he comes from a wealthy family, and I'll be taken care of for the rest of my life. Even if she did say all those things, that doesn't take away from the hurtful comments and gossip she had with her friend to my expense. She never apologized, but then again she doesn't apologize whenever she's wrong. She always makes it out to be my fault and expects me to apologize when she's in the wrong. I hate that she continues to make the visa situation about her. I'm sure it's hard on her, but nothing regarding this should be about her. I'm the one that's living this life, and this is my pain. It shouldn't be about her, and I wish she would understand and support if I have to move. I still can't believe my brother would make that comment as a joke, that my mom would be relieved his girlfriend is a US citizen. That's so heartless to even say, and it's not funny. I'm so beyond hurt by my mom and my brother.